seminar, blocks and quarantines. Hopefully that's what you're all expecting to be doing. We will be recording today's session, so you can watch it later if you wish. It will be up on our website. Not exactly sure when, depends just when we get the IT guys to get it up. But we are recording. If we could ask everybody to have your cameras and microphones off, just to cut down on feedback, keep the lag issues with the system as low as possible. That would be great, thank you. If you do have any questions, we will be taking them at the end. You can either drop it to the conversation or use the chat function. If you have any problems going through the session, do use the chat function and we will hopefully better deal with those as we're going through the session. And I think that's it for the admin. I say this session and the other sessions are available on our website for you to look at a later time. So, 2 minutes past, we'll start. So, pension statement, blocks and quarantines, part 1. What we are going to cover today is very much the theory behind the pension statement, blocks and quarantines process. And then next week, my colleague Kaylee will be going through the practical administration, what we actually need you to do. So this is the theory and the practical stuff is next week. But if you listen to this one, you'll know next week why we're asking you to do what we do ask you to do. So pension statements. If the slide will move on, and it will. Also known as annual benefit statements, ABSs, benefit statements, annual statements, pension forecasts, a multitude of different names. We are trying to be consistent with pension statements just to avoid the confusion, but same annual benefit statements, ABSs, benefit statements, annual statements, whatever, all refer to the pension statement. One thing that pension statements aren't are the same as estimates. Pension statement is something that we produce in bulk for all of your members. An estimate is reproduced for an individual member on an individual member's basis at a date that you pick or the member picks. All the benefit statements are done at the same date. Estimates are done at a particular date in the future that the member picks. It may be that the figures are the same if they pick the same date, or if it's only a month or two later, the difference will be negligible, but estimates and pension statements are two separate things. The reason I'm raising this is because we had a confusing conversation between ourselves and employer and a member, where the member was wanting an estimate. We had a query about the block. The employer was replying to the block query and telling the member that their estimate would be available. But there was two separate things going on. So I say, do be aware that pension statements and estimates are two separate things. And we are talking about pension statements today. So a pension statement must contain a description of the benefits earned by the person in respect of their pensionable service and other information specified by Treasury directions. Benefits are not something that we choose to issue. Benefit statements are something, or pension statements are something that we are required by law to issue for members. And it's the Occupational and Personal Pension Scheme Disclosure of Information Regulations 2013, which say a statement must be issued no later than 5 months after the end of the scheme year to which it relates. Our scheme year in the LGPS runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. Therefore, we as the pension fund must issue an annual statement to all your active members by the 31st of August each year. So it is a legal requirement to provide the annual statements. not something that we just do because we think it's best practice. There is a legal requirement to provide this information. And if come the 31st of August, we haven't produced enough statements, we are required to report material breaches of the regulations, i.e. the failure to produce pension statements, to the pensions regulator. It is a material breach, and we do have to decide what constitutes material. If you've got 500 members and only one of them hasn't received a pension statement, that's unlikely to be a material breach. If you have 500 members and only one of them has received a pension statement, that will be a material breach. And obviously, there's a middle ground where it's going to go from being a material to a non-material breach. But it does depend on how many members you've got. So the more you get through to us, the less chance you have of anybody deciding that the breach is material. But you are required to aim for 100%. If we do report a material breach of the regulations, then there are potentially penalties under the disclosure of information regulations. And those penalties can't exceed £5,000 for a single member, or up to £50,000 if you have multiple members that haven't received benefit statements. I say we are required to report material breaches. We have done in the past. I'm sure we will do in the future if it happens. But the aim is to ensure that we get all benefit statements out, all the pension statements out to all your members. So it's just not something that we have to be concerned about, because nobody wants to see anybody fined for the pensions regulator. So what happens once your March return has been submitted? Because it's the March return that we use end of the scheme year to complete the pension statements. It's March return that has the final pay figures on, the annual rates of pay that we use to calculate the pre-2014 benefits. So once we've received your March return, our finance team match the rows of data to the individual's members' pension records. Data quality checks are performed on the data, both on the March return and comparing data to previous years, etc. And all the members shown as being active as at the 31st of the 3rd, 2022 are put into one of three categories. We have OK, pension statement block, and pension statement quarantine. Hopefully, the vast majority of your members are going to fall under the OK category. For these, we will produce the pension statements, and for the vast majority of members, these will be available on My Pension. We are going to produce the statements in batches, so our contact centre isn't overwhelmed with queries. So not all your members will be notified at the same time, potentially, that their pension statement is available. So if you do have somebody who contacts you to say, I've got my statement, but my friend hasn't, or vice versa, it may be that it's because of the batched nature that we're doing it. So members who are registered for My Pension, they'll be informed by an email that the statement is available online. They can log on to My Pension and see this year's pension statement and any previous statements that have been produced. If a member's not registered for My Pension, they will be told their statement is available online and asked to register by email or letter, depending on if we've got an email address or not. So if we've already got an email address for a member, we will email them and say, your pension statement's available online, register for My Pension, you'll be able to see it. If we don't have that email address, we will write to their home address, telling them that their statement's available and asking them to register. It's a slightly different letter depending on whether we wrote to them last year or not, but fundamentally the same thing. If a member's opted out of electronic communication, then a paper copy will be sent by post. But obviously, for cost and administrative reasons, we clearly want as many people as possible to be registered for My Pension. So please be aware that My Pension is going to be the only way for the vast majority of people that they are going to be able to see their pension statement. And we would much prefer people to register for My Pension than to opt out and have to start producing paper copies. Second set of people we've got are pension statement blocks. These are people where either we don't have the information or we have multiple values and don't know which one is correct. So either there is nothing on the monthly return or we've got multiple things on the monthly return. So for these people, we're unable to produce a pension statement. So the block, I'll explain what those is later, will remain until the query is sorted. But do bear in mind as well that this year is also a valuation year. And if the information is incorrect to produce a benefit statement, it's also likely to be incorrect for the valuation purposes. So we do want all the blocks responded to by July this year, so that we can get the valuation completed as well. So although we want the blocks completing so we can produce the pension statements, the blocks also need completing so that your information can be accurate when it's sent to the actuary to determine what your contribution rate is as an employer going forward. A record may have more than one query. That's something to be aware of. If it does have 2 or 3 queries, you do need to answer all of them. Otherwise, it still won't progress from being a block. And when you do respond to a block, we will check the information you have supplied and it may block again. So it may be that a block will come back to you because the information provided is still inconsistent with what we're expecting. Quarantines are slightly different. A quarantine is where we have all the information, but it doesn't pass our internal check-in. So we are asking you to confirm that the information is correct. Quarantine cases have a lifespan of 6 weeks. So if you don't answer our request for further information within that 6 weeks, we will produce the pension statement with the information we hold, and that will go out to the member. So the member may then be in contact with you to seek clarification as to what is wrong with their record, if there is in fact something wrong. It may be that the information has been provided is correct, but we're giving you an opportunity to just double check that to reduce the member's query before we go ahead and send them their statement. Again, you've got 6 weeks to produce those. Any statements, any replies that haven't been received by the 10th of August at the very latest, we will produce the pension statement using the data we already have. So if we tell you on the 1st of August, you've got some quarantines, you don't have 6 weeks, you only have until the 10th of August. By the 10th of August, we will produce all pension statements using the data we already have. Again, there may be more than one query. So please do check all of them when providing an answer. Something that will result in a block of a pension statement is no data being received at all. So if you've got an active member and they're just not on the March return, they won't get a benefit statement, and we will query why not. We're going to want you to tell us why they weren't on the March return. So anybody who didn't receive or pay pension contributions in March will still need to be on that March monthly return, even if the query pay figures are 0. So we do need data. Other things we'll check is the final pay. If it looks low, got multiple values, or it's missing, and they've got pre-2014 service, then we are going to query that because we can't produce their statement without that final pay. No pay received for members who are contracted to work full or part-time. We would just expect everybody to receive some pay during the year. So the only exception that springs to mind is where members on an authorised leave of absence, such as a career break, sabbatical, that's for a period of more than 12 months. And you're not going to have a lot of them. So we are expecting data for everybody who works full or part-time. If a member is off sick, please remember we need the assumed pensionable pay on each monthly return if the pay has been reduced because of sickness or ill health. So do make sure that your monthly return is showing assumed pensionable pay where applicable. Otherwise, again, you may well find yourself you've got a block on your benefit statement for that member. If the final pay when it comes through looks low, less than £10,000 is the cut-off point where we've got on the March return, then it's going to block. We are going to ask for clarification. We do appreciate that the pay for apprentices could theoretically be lower, but we've got to set the bar somewhere, so it's £10,000. Because final pay only applies to people with pre-2014 service, we are only checking it for people with pre-2014 service. So anybody post-2014 only, if there is no final pay, it won't block, but we do ask for the final pay for everybody on the monthly return because you don't necessarily know who does or doesn't have pre-2014 service because it may have been transferred in from another employer. Multiple values have been received. If two or more individual roles on your March return have been matched to the same pension record, each has an entry for final pay, but we can't be sure which record it relates to. Again, we're going to query that with yourselves. Final pay, covered most of this, but basically, if there is no final pay and they've got pre-2014 service, we are going to query this. And bearing in mind, say, you may not be aware that they've got pre-2014 because it's been linked or transferred in to their current record from a previous employer. So those are the blocks. These are the quarantines. So the quarantine, we will eventually provide information to the member based on this, but we do think it may be worth you checking it. So please do respond to the quarantines as well as the blocks. The block, say, will remain in place until as late as possible, but the quarantines do have a 6 weeks deadline or the 10th of August, whichever is the sooner. So quarantined, missing contributions during the year, but March is present. CPP, the pay spikes or jumps. If we suspect they're a leaver, no data received at all, or the final pay for the 2008 scheme increases by 20% or decreases by 10%, it will go into quarantine. So we will ask you to have another look at that data just to confirm whether it's correct or not. So if there's a missing month during the year, but March is present, we will want confirmation as to why that period is missing. Reasons could be a period of unpaid leave, an issue with payroll where the employee missed a month but then got paid arrears a subsequent month, something like that. Because casuals are special and they may work from 1 month to the next, may not work for 6 months, then work for 6, who knows? We only check most of this information for full or part-time records. Because casuals, who knows what's going to happen with the casual? CPP, cumulative pensionable pay, spike or jump. If it's jumped significantly, we are going to ask you to check. Again, the reasons could be promotion or overtime worked, but it could also well be that the information supplied to us is incorrect. So it's better to check, get it right, than raise the members' expectations and then dash them again at a later date. Suspected leavers. I mean, we have spent a lot of time in the last few months sending out details of people that we think have left, but there will be more people when we come to do the pension statements. So again, if we suspect a member's left, we will quarantine that record to give you the opportunity to A, tell us they've left, and B, supply us with the leaver/retirement notification. No data received at all. Check only triggers where the member doesn't work full or part-time. Reason for this could be they're a casual worker who hasn't done any work that year. Final pay. So increase by 20% or decreases by 10%. We are going to ask you to have a look at this and just confirm that it's correct. Big issue with final pay tends to be that we've only been provided with the term time only pay rather than the full-time equivalent or the part-time pay against the actual full-time equivalent again, things like that. So there are reasons why the pay may have dropped from this year to last, depending on the information that's been provided. So again, it's just an opportunity for you to correct that information before we tell the member what their pension statement is. So all those members who are okay will get their pension statements. Those where we're not sure will get a block and a quarantine. That will start a process on the members' records, and that will show in your group tray. You can move that information from your group tray into an individual work tray and either provide revised information or confirm what you've already supplied is correct. Please, though, do be aware that you can see the information that you have supplied to us about a member on the employer portal. So it may be worth, when you get a block or quarantine, looking at the member's record, see what information has been supplied to us before just confirming whether it's correct or not. Because sometimes it's important not just to know whether it's correct, but why. So do feel free to have a look at the member's record before answering the questions. But say you get a pension statement and block, it will go in your group tray on the employer portal, and the letter will be sent to the main contacts via email when those blocks and quarantines are released to your group trays. You may receive multiple notifications as more pension statements are run, depending on the size of your fund, your employment, whether you have multiple payrolls, if you're a multi-academy trust, something like that. We may run the pension statements more than once, depending on just what information has been updated. So you may receive more than one letter saying that blocks and quarantines have been released to your group tray. The date on the letter refers to the date those quarantines will be released, and subsequent letters will not change the release date of previously notified quarantines. So if on the 1st of May you get told you've got 20 quarantines and they're due to be released 6 weeks later, and on the 10th of May we tell you you've got another 15 quarantines and they're going to be released again 6 weeks later, the first notified quarantines will still be 6 weeks from the date of the initial notification. They won't move on. And all outstanding quarantines will be released on the 10th of August, pretty much come what may. And if you haven't responded, say your members are potentially going to be getting incorrect pension statements, which will raise queries and potentially upset the member, depending on just what's wrong with it, which is something that we all want to avoid. So please action the box and quarantines as soon as possible after they have been received. Our members could be getting incorrect pension statements. Check your group query regularly, as return queries could still fail our checks and the process will start again. If you do have any queries about the box and quarantines process, please do contact your employer pension fund representative. We are here to help and we will do what we can to assist. But if you contact us on the 8th of August and say you've got 75 quarantines, we may be a bit limited in what we can do in such a short time frame. So please don't leave this till the last minute. Please action the box and quarantines as soon as we contact you about them. Because sometimes it's not a case of you just answering the one question. It sometimes has follow-on queries. So that's the theory of the box and quarantines. So we are running a part 2 to this session, which will give you details of how to actually respond and reply to the box and quarantines. That's running next on the 31st of March at 2 p.m. If you want to, you can still visit our website and book for that. We look forward to seeing you there. That's the end of my session. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to raise? No? Right. In that case, thank you very much for attending. We hope you found it useful. So if you do have any queries, do please contact us. We would much rather help you as soon as possible rather than everybody contact us at the last minute. And we will be sending out a survey about this presentation. So if you do have any comments about anything I've covered, did I go over something too quickly? Should I have covered something in more detail? Whatever it may be, please do feel free to let us know your comments. Thank you very much.